Well, welcome. Welcome back to your reunions. If you're here for that, welcome back to campus for any reason, and welcome all to Spring Carnival. I'm sure you're enjoying it. Hope you enjoyed the buggy races today, and you get over the midway and take in all that makes Carnival special, in which I'm sure you remember well. I was chatting before about buggy. We have a chief mechanic from a buggy team that I'll be introducing to you later on, and it reminded me that it's surprising to me no more, but it used to be, how many alumni, when I would meet them, would say to me, you know, I learned more from being chief mechanic on my buggy team or head of my booth committee than I did in 4 years in the classroom. At first I would go, wait a minute, what does that mean? And then I realized it's probably true, at least in terms of the things that they learn. Even when we have fun here, we're learning a lot. And our students get very passionate about fun things like buggy. It's one of the things that makes Carnegie Mellon very special. I'm going to give you a relatively brief update on the university and some highlights. Have a little time for questions and answers. And then I'm going to introduce to you a student panel. And I want to save as much time for them as possible because hearing from our students is much better, in my view, than hearing from anybody else at the university, including and especially the president. And to get a glimpse of what really goes on here and what Carnegie Mellon is like today, you need to hear from the students. Let me pick up on a reference that Jay made, which I think is always very important for alumni, especially to keep in mind. We're certainly a different university than the one you attended in the sense of our physical appearance. We no doubt have more programs of various kinds or different ones than when you were here. We've discontinued some, like printing management, which is still a sore point for a lot of alumni. But we started other ones, like human-computer interaction, which we happen to think of as the 21st century version of printing management. But there's some things that haven't changed at all, and that's the real message that I want to convey to you. The same values on which Carnegie Technical Schools and then Carnegie Tech were founded, the same values that guided the university when you were here, whenever you were here, are the same values that we follow today. If you ask any person at random on this campus today, currently affiliated with the university as a student, a staff member, or faculty member, and you ask them, quick, what makes Carnegie Mellon what it is? You're likely to hear the same answer from all of them, which itself is notable. We are a university that knows itself well. That can't be said by a lot of places, but we are distinctive and we know that. And we know ourselves, and I think we like what we know about ourselves. But what you're likely to hear would be, well, if you ask a student, the first thing he would say is hard work. Jay's right about that. The students still work very, very hard. Some would say, in fact, most of them would say, we're the hardest working student body in the world in history, probably, or some version of that. And they're probably not that far off. And we don't apologize for that. The rigor of our programs and their depth and the challenge that we present to our students are things that we do very intentionally. And it's the reason why our students do so well when they leave here. The tongue-in-cheek comment, life is easy after Carnegie Mellon. And of course what that means is you're so well prepared for whatever your next step is, whether it's workplace or graduate school or professional school. This university prepares you very well. We work hard. But you're also likely to hear words like problem solving, same phrase you would have heard when you were here. Collaboration, interdisciplinary collaboration is what we call it today, or teamwork. That's something that's been around as an explicit part of Carnegie Mellon for about 60 years. But in the last 10 years, it's really come to the fore. We've understood how valuable that is, and we've made it a key part of everything we do, including the undergraduate program. And you'll probably hear innovation, doing things a different way, not being satisfied with the status quo, about anything, status quo in the world, status quo with the way we do things on campus, always wanted to get better. That's Carnegie Mellon. It's Carnegie Mellon today. It was Carnegie Mellon 20 years ago. That was Carnegie Mellon 70 years ago. Just simply called another name. So we've changed a lot, but deep down in our hearts, and very importantly, with the same university that you attended. We'll hear from our students later, but let me say a few words about them. The student body today is just phenomenal. They're very highly selected from a too large applicant pool, which I'll come back to. Well, let me tell you about it now. So for the freshman class that will enter in September, August actually, we received over 26,000 applications for 1,400 spaces. You do the math. Now the 26,000 itself, I mean, it's a nice compliment to the university, but it's problematic. Our admissions office has prided itself on its unfailing commitment and ability to honor that commitment of reviewing every application individually. They still did that this year, but they're still recovering from having done it. It's just really become kind of problematic. And I'll as an indication of how wonderful the students are, but also the nature of the challenge in the admissions process right now, Carnegie Mellon for next year rejected, I'm about to tell you students that we rejected, 309 valedictorians. These are kids first in their classes that got rejected. 1,200 kids with straight A's and 30 kids with perfect SATs. They got rejected. So when a parent calls me up and says, "How could you have rejected my kid?" Actually, my response these days is, "I don't know." Don't know. But that's, and any prospective parents here? Good. Because you would have fallen off your chair screaming out of the room. There's so much stress in the system these days, and this is why. And I don't envy being on the other side of this. I know what you're thinking, and I think the same thing. I could not have gotten into the schools I attended either, or could not get into them today. You could have. The world is just different, that's all. But it really is something. The students are phenomenal. And one of the things that's notable in recent years is the frequency with which our students win these big, prestigious national scholarships, like the Rhodes. We didn't get any Rhodes this year, but we've gotten other prestigious ones. Last year, we had our first Marshall scholar in 41 years, Sheila Ramesh, who is a major in humanities and social sciences and music. Keep that in mind. I'll come back to that. I said you heard me right. Humanities and social sciences and music. This year, and you'll be meeting her later, Swati Varshney, who's a science and humanities scholars and chemistry major, won a Churchill scholarship. That's a phenomenal achievement. The Churchill is to Cambridge, what the Rhodes is to Oxford, except it's actually harder to win than a Rhodes because there are only 14 Churchills, and Swati won one of those. Congratulations again, Swati. And there are many more. Goldwater's, Truman's. Our students are applying for these in numbers that they never did before, and they're winning them as well. An indication again of the quality of the students. So I mentioned Sheila's combination of HNSS and music. These kinds of multidisciplinary combinations have become the norm around here. And it's a marvelous thing to see. For one thing, you have to be the kind of person who can succeed at humanities and social sciences or engineering or something else, and something else like music or a modern language. Quite common combination these days are things like computer science and Chinese. I'm not talking about taking a course in Chinese. I'm talking about majoring in Chinese while you're majoring in computer science. I'm impressed by that. What that shows you is both this sort of multidisciplinary approach to things, which I talked about before, but also university success in making it possible, or closer to possible, sometimes it isn't possible, for students to do these kinds of things. And I think it's a great thing. These are kids who will have big impact in the world. You heard Jay's reference to how global we've become. Just to put a name on some of the countries that Jay was referring to in summary terms, we have an undergraduate program in Qatar, in the Middle East. We have graduate programs in Portugal, Australia, Greece, Singapore, and elsewhere. Korea, Japan, sorry. It's hard to keep track sometimes. And as you also heard, all of this has happened in the last few years. This has been a tremendous thing for the university, and I think something that will be extremely important for our strategic positioning and our ability to be a leading university in the future. Of course, the campus has changed in a lot of ways dramatically, depending on when you graduated. Even if you graduated 5 years ago, there have been significant changes. The big recent change is the building of the computer science complex, the Bill Gates and Henry Hillman complex. One part of it's named for Bill Gates, the other part for Henry Hillman, the two leading donors to that building. It's a wonderful building. However you might feel about it from the outside, and I know it doesn't have buff-colored brick. I'm reminded of that all the time by many people. Inside, and I hope you get inside, it is just tremendous. It's exactly the kind of space that everybody would like to have, and computer scientists especially cherish greatly, because it has the kind of both structured and a lot of unstructured, informal places for collaboration and discussion. It really is a wonderful building. And you might remember what it replaced, sort of a collection of buildings that generously could be called derelict. They were not very nice buildings, way past their useful lives. And that's been replaced, creating a much nicer setting, and in fact creating a whole campus down below, or quadrangle I should say, that never existed before. It really is terrific. Now, less apparent, but no less significant, is the expansion of the campus footprint. In the last year, we've acquired all the land between the university's current western footprint and Craig Street, or put another way, everything on the other side of the hollow, on both sides of the street, except for those three buildings at the end on the north. That is Panther Hollow Inn. May it survive forever. Even if we bought that, I guess we would have to sustain it. We couldn't get rid of it. The Jewish University Center and then the Starbucks. We don't own those, but we own everything else around it. This is a very big deal for us. The university's campus has not expanded in forever, I think, or at least don't remember the last time we were able to push out the footprint. Nothing's built on it yet, as you would have noticed, and we're developing plans now. But it's likely to include some kind of mixed-use development, including commercial development, and also, and that including at least one more building intended for companies that would be attracted to Pittsburgh to create research and development centers here. There's a building on campus now. It's right at the edge of the hollow. It's the first thing you see coming to the campus from Pitt. And it's across this new quadrangle from the Gates Center. That was a building built just for that purpose. It opened about 5 or 6 years ago, and it has in it Apple, Intel, and Google, companies that had never been in Pittsburgh before. And were attracted because of that building to be close to Carnegie Mellon on our campus. It's worked out incredibly well. So well that Google, which went from 2 people to 100 people in 4 years, has run out of room. and they're leaving to move into a new development in East Liberty. Now, remember your Pittsburgh geography. And no matter when you lived here, even 5 years ago, if I had told you Google's going to open a major engineering center in East Liberty, you would have said, get out of here, you're crazy. It's true. And this is a tremendous thing for the city, as it is for the university. Google's moving out, but the new Disney lab, yes, we have a Disney research center here, only 2 in the world is here, will be moving in, and other companies are lining up to fill the space. It's been a tremendous development for the university and for the city. And the city is doing very well. In fact, so well that last fall, President Obama chose Pittsburgh to host the G20 Summit of Global Leaders. It was a stunning announcement. Pittsburgh became the first city that was not a national capital to host a meeting like that. And we were chosen by the Obama administration because we've become the model of the older industrial city, which has transformed itself from its old industrial past to a knowledge-based, diversified economy. It's been a tremendous success story, and Carnegie Mellon is at the heart of that. In fact, just one statistic, in the depth of the recent recession, our unemployment rate here in Pittsburgh reached about 7.5%. Nationally, of course, reached 10% plus, which is an indication of, I'm not saying we're in recession, we're not, and unemployment here may still go up a bit, but we've done very, very well, and again, the universities have had everything to do with that. The recession, of course, has had an impact on virtually every organization in the country, arguably the world, including Carnegie Mellon University. Our endowment last year lost about a quarter of its value. It's a lot of money. It's recovered nicely this year so far. Since July 1st through the end of March, it's gained back about 15%. That's very good. But the way we manage and spend from our endowment, the effect of that loss from last year will be with us for another 3 years, believe it or not. So we've had to mind our P's and Q's and pull in our belt. And we've done it. We're fine. The university's in strong shape. We instituted a series of budget cuts, and the campus responded very well to it. We froze all salaries last year and announced, that is for the current year, announced a 1% salary increase for next year, which is almost like a freeze. So people are feeling it, but we got jobs. We've not had to do many layoffs at all. And the university is quite strong. Even while we've been, I should add one more thing. It's been interesting how the recession's had this sort of delayed impact on Carnegie Mellon. The endowment loss, but then the effects of it are being felt now and will for another 2 or 3 years. Another delayed effect, in terms of, at least in how and when it got manifest, was on our undergraduate student body. So undergraduate financial aid, we're now projecting, will be $4 million higher in the current year than what we projected at the beginning of the year. And that's because the need of our student body has gone up. And we're projecting that financial aid requirements for next year and the year after will be $16 million higher than what we projected. Again, because of the effect of the economy on our families. And we're responding to that, of course. But all of this puts pressure on our budget. As I started to say, even in the face of these cuts and slowing down, the university must not stop moving ahead strategically. And we haven't. We've continued to make very selective key hires of new faculty in areas that are strategically important to the university. We've continued to invest in facilities when we've got the money to do so, which we feel we just can't delay doing because it's too important for the university. And we'll continue to do that. So the university is in good shape. financially solid shape, but we have this continuing effect of the economy that will be with us for probably about 3 more years. Money unavoidably is important, of course. And the revenues for Carnegie Mellon come from 3 sources and only 3 sources. From tuition dollars, from sponsored research, largely from the federal government, and we're very good at winning those grants in what is a very competitive environment. And finally, endowment withdrawals and gifts. Gifts largely from our graduates, from our alumni, from you. We started a capital campaign some years ago now, a campaign that's gone well in every respect. We've raised over $600 million towards our $1 billion goal. And yes, fundraising has slowed down during the recession and after, as you would expect. But the people interaction part of the campaign has continued to pace and gone very well. And in fact, this campaign is as much about engaging our alumni as it is about raising money. You heard Jay refer to the approximately 15 international alumni chapters. That's up from only 2 international alumni chapters at the beginning of the campaign. In fact, we have 3 times more alumni chapters in total around the world than we did at the beginning of the campaign. We have many, many more alumni coming back for events like this. We're delighted by the response of our alumni to Carnival and reunions at Carnival time. This is all part of a concerted effort by us to engage our alumni, because we understand how important that is. You're important to us not just as a source of money, but your giving is very important to us. But you're important to us in every other way. You are our eyes and ears on the world. You are the best billboards the university can have in terms of advertising and so on. It really is you that shape the reputation of this university. When people know you're a Carnegie Mellon graduate, they'll go, oh, okay, so they graduate good people who have impacted the world. Alumni are very, very important to us, and engaging you then is a very high priority for us. As part of our effort to increase alumni participation, we've launched our Loyal Scots program. Anybody have a Loyal Scots t-shirt on? I'm sure you all have one under your shirts. That you just go like that and show us. There it is. A proud owner of a Loyal Scot t-shirt. Thank you very much for, you know what, do that again and show it to the camera. There you are, yeah. This program was put together to encourage you to be involved. It recognizes your attendance at events like this, your volunteerism on behalf of the university, your willingness to advocate on behalf of the university, and your annual giving. It's easy to join, really easy to join. There's a table out here somewhere, right outside the room. There's one at the buggy races. There's one over at the Midway. And Dan and his colleagues would be more than happy to sign you up. So please take advantage of that. In sum, Carnegie Mellon is doing very, very well. It's an exciting time for us, recession aside. We continue to charge ahead. We get phenomenal students. Brilliant faculty. Together they do just tremendous things, and it's something we should all be very proud of. Thank you very much for coming back and for listening to me today. Thank you. So we have time for a couple of questions before we turn to our student panel. Any questions for me about anything whatsoever? It could be on anything at all. Yes, sir.
How do you finance the campus's efforts overseas?
Good. I'm very glad you asked that question. The question was, how do we finance our efforts outside of Pittsburgh internationally? So we made a commitment to ourselves and to our board of trustees when we set out to do this, that we would never subsidize an international program from Pittsburgh. These programs would have to at least pay for themselves. They'd have to be break even or better. And we do that by having a source of funding locally, usually a government. So the government of Qatar funds us. The government of Portugal funds us. In sum, last year, our international programs produced a surplus of $10 million, which went to support general university operations. So that's a pledge we have. It's got to be, it cannot take away from Pittsburgh's operations. Other questions?
What is the tuition now?
I couldn't hear the question, I'm sorry. The question was, yeah, you all know it. What is the tuition now? So hold on to your seat. It's about $40,000, and that's just tuition. When you add room and board and books and fees, it comes to about $50,000 a year. Now, it's not a number we're proud of. We would tell you, though, that it's less than the actual cost of educating a student, which it is. We would say also, with some confidence, that it's worth it, that students get tremendous value and families get tremendous value by that investment. And we feel very good about what we deliver and the product we offer. I've struggled with this, and I've tried to understand. You can look at inflation rates, and yes, we know the tuition increases year to year have outpaced the consumer price index by a substantial margin. In fact, our cost, there's actually a separate inflation index for higher education. Those also have gone up faster than the CPI. But I try to put it kind of in commonplace terms, so I think about how much it cost when I went to college, a little bit less. It was about $2,000 a year, which seemed like a lot of money then, and it was. And I reflect on the fact that a new Chevrolet Camaro costs $2,500. Now, I'm not saying that you would spend $40,000 on a new Chevrolet today. But you know, cost of a new car, year of tuition, the discrepancy isn't that much. How did I do? You're not convinced. It's high. About 60% of our students get financial aid of some amount. We do our very best to meet their needs, but we're not able to meet all needs. And a lot of students come here every year with a gap between what we acknowledge to be their family need and how much we're able to do. And how they come, we're never quite sure. They get it from Uncle Joe or somehow. And we're not happy about that. This is why endowed undergraduate scholarships represent our #1 priority in our capital campaign, and why we've launched a recent mini-campaign post-recession that we call Fuel the Fire, which is all focused on student support. It's so important to us. It's a big issue. One last question, last question. Our new loyal Scott ask the question, and then we'll go to the student panel. Yes, sir.
This has to do with faculty. You didn't mention it in your opening address. I'd like you to discuss faculty retention and whether the university attracted some good new professors during the past few years that are worthy of discussion.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking that. The question was, what about faculty? Are we able to continue to hire and attract the best, I would say, good new faculty and retain them? In fact, the retention of faculty is one of our major preoccupations. But first let me say we get phenomenal faculty. And we also, there's a very strong sort of self-selection mechanism that goes on here, where we get faculty who are not only among the strongest faculty you can find anywhere in the world, but they really are bought into this interdisciplinary collaboration. They recognize that that's what we do so well, and by coming here, that's the kind of environment they can take advantage of. That's the kind of person we get. Indicators of the strength of our faculty. Last month, 3 of our professors were elected in the National Academy. Only about 50 or 60 people nationally get elected in the Academy, so for Carnegie Mellon, while it's small, they get 3. That's big. That's a lot in 1 year. In fact, the only year we've done better is when we had 4. So that's an indication of quality. Another is how successful they are in winning grants in what is an extremely competitive sponsored research process. Our faculty are just tremendous at that. We get more than our share. I'll just tell you one sort of private statistic, private because the National Science Foundation would never acknowledge this or talk about it. They had a special funding program, it ended 2 or 3 years ago, in computer science at the National Science Foundation. And while that program lasted, Carnegie Mellon faculty won more grants from that program than any state, not any other university, than any state except California. You get that? In other words, you add up all the universities in Illinois, University of Chicago, Northwestern, University of Illinois, all the funding that went to Illinois, it was less than what Carnegie Mellon alone won. We won more grants, and they're all very competitive, than any other state except California, and trivially Pennsylvania. That shows you tremendous power. Another indication, just yesterday, U.S. News and World Report issued its graduate school rankings. Computer science was ranked number 1. Engineering was ranked number 6. Business was ranked number 16. Statistics, the first time they ever ranked statistics, was ranked number 9. We think we should be higher, but that's very good for a very small statistics department. Math was ranked in the 30s, but number 3 in logic. And the list goes on. Even in those programs where overall the department's not ranked very high, we've got individual programs which are among the very best. So the business school I said was 16th, but information technology and business were number 2. Computational finance, if they ranked it, hands down would be number 1. And the list goes on. So there's no question, I think, in my mind, about both the quality and the productivity of the faculty. We've made some very key hires in recent years. We hired a new director of our Center for the Neural Basis of Cognition. That's a whole story in itself. It's one of the, we're told by the experts, the third in the top 3 programs in the world. And it was a very big hire. We attracted him away from Brown University, and it was a very big deal. We just hired a very dynamic new leader for our human-computer interaction program from Northwestern. Now, finally, retention. That might be our biggest challenge when it comes to faculty. We are being rated continuously across the entire university, and it's a constant challenge to fend off these rates. And it's generally richer universities which offer, in my view, outrageous packages in salaries. We had one guy, I won't tell you the name, I will tell you that it was Princeton involved, which offered this guy a salary twice what he was making here, and said to him, as long as you're at Princeton, you'll be the highest paid professor at Princeton. How do you promise him? I mean, that's how good he is. This guy will win a Nobel Prize someday. We kept him. Now, we did not match that offer or come even close. But he understood that he was part of a special environment here, this collaborative environment, where he could do things that he can't do anywhere else. And but this is a consequence from it. Anyhow, I've gone on too long. Now let me introduce our wonderful student.